Discover how a heartwarming cartoon uncovered the incredible journey of Koenigsegg Hypercars. Jake Thompson couldn't contain his excitement as he watched the latest episode of Speed Legends. The electric roars of hypercars, racing down the tracks, filled him with dreams that soared like the skies above Maplewood. A 10-year-old with a heart full of ambition, Jake envisioned designing his own car one day, a masterpiece that could race against the wind. But reality tugged at his joy. At home, the air was thick with tension, his father's gruff voice echoing the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Once a proud factory worker, now, he struggled under the strain of endless shifts and missed promotions. Amidst the bright picket fences and friendly faces of their suburb, Jake found solace in his bond with his grandfather. A retired veteran, his grandfather was a trove of tireless stories filled with resilience and the spirit of the American dream. A journey of grit painted in shades of hardship and triumph. On those evenings, as the setting sun cast an amber glow on the workshop, Jake felt hope blossom in his heart, igniting his spirit for creative concoctions and wild innovations. With the annual Maplewood Science Fair fast approaching, Jake decided to channel his dreams into building an intricate model of a Koenigsegg hypercar. Every tool in the workshop became a brush in his masterpiece. He spent days designing the car, letting the cartoon world inspire every curve, shine, and detail. However, his father, burdened by the weight of his own lost dreams, barked at Jake, insisting he ought to concentrate on reality, a painful reminder of what he had to let go. The argument spiraled, echoing through the walls, making Jake feel isolated, like he was living in a bubble far away from understanding. But Maplewood had a heart. As the community rallied around the fair, neighbors lent tools, materials, and even gave advice. Each gesture, small but powerful, whispered to Jake that he was not alone. Still, his father's disappointment loomed larger than life, and self-doubt seeped into Jake's heart. Just days before the fair, catastrophe struck. Someone had sabotaged his model. Heart pounding with despair, Jake stumbled into his grandfather's workshop. There, the walls were lined with memories of love and strength. Jake's grandfather shared stories of his own journey, his voice steady, filled with understanding. Success isn't defined by trophies or applause, Jake, he said softly. It's about the integrity to follow your dreams, no matter the odds. Those words wrapped around Jake like a warm blanket, igniting the fire in his heart once more. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the science fair dawned, joy intertwined with deep anxiety. The hall was alive with laughter, creativity, and nervous energy. Jake stood before his creation, his heart racing in tandem with the sound of applause rising up around him. Just when he thought it would all come crashing down, the moment arrived. Could he rise from the ashes of despair? Would this moment redefine not just the science fair but also mend the rift with his father? Behind him, the crowd buzzed, hope expanding in the air, waiting for Jake's next move. Jake took a deep breath, his fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the sleek contours of his model car. The vibrant colors and intricately designed features made it gleam under the fluorescent lights of the fair. He felt gratitude for the community that had rallied around him, but his heart still ached with uncertainty about his father's acceptance. As the judges began their rounds, Jake stood nervously at his table. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a project. It was a statement about who he was and who he aspired to be. The first judge, a woman with kind eyes and an encouraging smile, approached. "What inspired your design?" she asked, leaning close. Her interest genuine, he smiled and began to explain, sharing how cartoons sparked his imagination, how he envisioned his car cutting through the air like a silver bullet. As he spoke, he noticed her nodding along, eyes lighting up with each detail. It felt good to finally share his passion, and for a moment, the buzzing crowd melted away. Next, he spotted his father standing at the edge of the hall. His expression was unreadable, a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Jake's heart raced. Would he even care enough to come closer? Would he understand that this was Jake's version of reality, much like the dreams he once held? With the judges moving on, Jake took a small step toward his father, urging himself to approach, but then pulled back. He feared the familiar storm of disappointment in his father's eyes. Instead, he focused on finishing strong. The final judge, a stern man with a notepad, began his evaluation. Jake's palms became sweaty, but he pushed through, proudly showcasing every feature of the hypercar. Pouring his heart into the demonstration as the judge finished taking notes, Jake caught his breath, ready for whatever came next. Suddenly, the lights in the hall flickered. An announcement rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the awards ceremony shortly." The crowd buzzed with excitement. Jake's excitement wavered, drowning in doubt. Those moments stretched into eternity as he waited, his mind racing back to his grandfather's words. Each story his grandfather had shared flooded back, reminding him that success isn't just about winning. It's about passion and courage in the face of adversity. Finally, the ceremony began. The announcer beamed as he highlighted projects of creativity and innovation. While Jake didn't expect to win, he could hardly believe what he felt: a sense of belonging and pride. Then, to his surprise, his name was called for an award. And the award for the most creative design goes to Jake Thompson. The words echoed around him, pulling him from his self-doubt and catapulting him into a wave of support as the crowd erupted into cheers. Jake was stunned, disbelief washing over him. Rushing to the stage, he felt the warmth of applause wash over him like sunshine on his skin. But amidst the clapping, he caught a glimpse of his father, who stood stunned, an unexpected glimmer of pride blossoming in his eyes. He felt a rush of hope. Could this be the moment that changed everything? Jake turned back to the crowd, grabbing the microphone. It was time to speak up, to let his dreams be known beyond this moment. He took a deep breath, looking at the faces surrounding him, feeling their encouragement. "Thank you. I've learned that dreams aren't just for the movies. They're real, and we should chase them no matter what." Jake's voice rang out, charging the air with conviction. The audience erupted again, but this time, Jake's gaze locked onto his father, who was now smiling, a hint of understanding breaking through the years of silence. The moment felt monumental, but as he looked back at the crowd, he wondered, could this victory be the first step toward healing the rift with his father? Jake stepped down from the stage, uncertain yet hopeful. He was ready to face whatever came next, but little did he know, the journey ahead held challenges beyond his wildest dreams. Would he have the courage to continue? Jake stepped off the stage, adrenaline coursing through him. The applause still echoed in his ears, a beautiful harmony mixed with his racing heart. He scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces, feeling the weight of their support pressing on him like a warm blanket. But amidst the celebration, there was someone he desperately wanted to connect with: his father. As Jake wandered through the crowd, a few classmates approached him, all smiles and congratulations. "Dude, that was awesome. You really deserve this," one of them exclaimed, clapping him on the back. Jake felt a rush of gratitude. He appreciated their excitement but couldn't shake the feeling that the true prize was still out of reach. Finally, he spotted his father making his way toward him, the initial shock still present on his face. "Hey son," he said, a wavering smile creeping onto his lips. "That was unexpected." Jake's heart fluttered. "Yeah, I didn't think I'd actually win." His father studied him for a moment, eyes flickering with something Jake couldn't quite identify. Was it pride or just disbelief? "I was impressed," he said quietly, searching for the right words. "You really put a lot into that, didn't you?" Jake felt a spark ignite inside him. "I did. It means everything to me. I wanted it to be perfect so everyone could see what I see." They locked eyes, the silence stretching between them. Jake couldn't ignore the past that loomed in the air. Could this victory soften the years of tension? He took a small leap. "Dad, I just then..." A voice interrupted from behind them. "Jake, Over here. It was his mother, waving excitedly. In that moment, Jake felt the air shift. She rushed over, eyes gleaming like the trophy he held. "Look at you. I'm so proud," she gushed, pulling him into a hug. Jake melted into her arms, feeling her warmth wrap around him. But as he glanced back at his father, the older man's smile faltered. Jake sensed how fragile this moment was. Jake's mom pulled back and turned to his father. "What do you think? Amazing, right?" His father nodded, but there was a hesitation that gnawed at Jake. "It's a good start." The words were careful, measured. Jake felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to scream that this was more than just a start. It was a breakthrough. "I want to keep working on my designs. I have so many ideas. Maybe it could be a career?" His father looked pensive, and the heaviness returned. "Let us just take it one step at a time, okay?" The slight rejection stung, and Jake's heart sank. But he pushed through, determined not to let this moment be defined by doubt. "I'll prove it," he said, a fire igniting in his belly. "I'll show you that this is more than just a hobby." His father's brows furrowed, and for a second, Jake feared he'd gone too far. But then, he saw a flicker of acknowledgement, perhaps even hope in his dad's eyes as the event wound down. Jake felt the buzz of excitement fade, replaced by a quiet resolve. He knew he had more to show, more hurdles to leap, but his heart whispered that this was just the beginning. With his award clutched in one hand, he glanced around, breathing it all in. Laughter, chatter, the familiar sound of dreams being discussed and shared. This was his world, and he was ready to dive deeper. But just as he was about to leave, a chilling thought struck him. What if his journey led him somewhere he didn't expect? What if pursuing his dreams opened doors that changed everything, like uncovering secrets about his own family's past? Jake took a deep breath, curiosity stirring within him. With newfound determination, he stepped outside, ready for whatever awaited him next. The cool night air surrounded him like a promise. But what would he discover about himself in the process? The night air was crisp, tinged with the faint scent of rain, and as Jake stepped outside, a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation filled him. He almost felt like he could ride the cool breeze toward his next adventure. But it was more than adrenaline driving him. It was the lingering thoughts of his family's past that weighed heavily on his mind. He watched cars zoom by, their headlights casting fleeting shadows on the pavement, and felt an unexpected flicker of hope kindling in his chest. What if he could tap into that source of inspiration? The possibilities of designing cars swirled like the leaves in the wind. What stories lay behind every contour, every crafted piece of glass? Jake turned down the street, his heart racing not just from his win, but from the questions that buzzed like bees in his head. He couldn't shake the feeling that his own journey might have roots entangled with his family's history. The notion stirred inside him, urging him to seek out the truth. As he meandered through familiar streets, the weight of uncertainty hovered above him. Would discovering more about his family bring closure or clarity? Would it bridge the gaps between him and his father? He had always sensed layers beneath the surface and felt it was time to peel them back. He remembered snippets of conversations overheard in the living room, cryptic remarks exchanged between his parents. There was something about a family legacy, but it always seemed shrouded in mystery. Jake quickened his pace, focusing on the thrill of the forthcoming unraveling. His fingers absent-mindedly traced the contours of the trophy in his pocket as he turned into a small park, dimly lit and serene. The moonlight washed over the empty benches like a soft blanket, and as Jake settled onto a bench, he took a moment to breathe. He pulled his phone from his pocket, considering whether to call his mom. Would she share what she knew? Would facing the truth provoke discomfort? But as he hesitated, a shadow caught his eye, a tall figure approaching through the trees. His heart dropped as recognition set in. Jake? It was his father, looking uncertain, almost vulnerable under the moonlight. The distance between them was fraught with unsaid words. "I wanted to talk to you." Jake didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched his father's face, trying to gauge if this was a moment for reassurance or confrontation. "Here?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, here. It feels like we're both searching for something, his father admitted, taking a seat beside him. The space felt charged with anticipation, and Jake realized they were both at a crossroads, fueled by the same love but tethered by different fears. His heart raced as he weighed his next words carefully. Dad, I really want to understand. About us. About our family. There's so much I don't know. His father's gaze softened, but there was still a hesitance there. Jake waited, the silence heavy with expectation. And then it happened. The moment Jake had longed for, the thread of honesty that could tie everything together. There are things I haven't told you, Jake. Things about our family, about my past. The air thickened with possibility, and Jake's heart thundered with a mix of excitement and unease. What revelations awaited them? What would this journey uncover about his own identity? As Jake prepared for a truth he'd hoped for, the world around them faded into a blur, leaving just the two of them in the stark light of clarity. He could almost see the pieces coming together, like the gears in a well-oiled machine, and he was determined to find out where they fit. And suddenly, a new question arose: what if the pieces of his father's past reflected an unimagined future for Jake? Would the path they uncovered lead him not just to understanding but to a destiny he never dared to dream? The night stretched before them, steeped in mystery, ready to unveil the answers lurking in the shadows. Jake's pulse quickened as the weight of his father's words began to settle in. They lingered in the air, creating a palpable tension between them. This was the moment he had dreamed of, but it felt simultaneously terrifying. Things about our family? He prompted, his voice steadier than he felt. What kind of things? His father drew a deep breath, the uncharacteristic vulnerability on his face sending a wave of unease through Jake. It's complicated. There are stories that I haven't shared. Stories that are painful but important. Jake leaned forward, every fiber of his being focused on his father. I need to hear them. Can't be worse than the silence. There was a flicker of hesitation, and the shadows of the park seemed to stretch around them as they sat in silence. Finally, his father spoke, his voice low and steady, like he was unraveling something long hidden. Your grandfather worked in the automotive industry. In a different way than most people know. Jake's heart raced. His grandfather had carved a path for their family, and the thought of exploring that legacy sent shivers down his spine. What do you mean? His father looked out into the dark expanse of the park, his eyes reflecting emotions Jake couldn't quite read. He was involved in design but more in the background. He started designing cars in secret, cars that never saw the light of day. There was a vision, Jake, a dream of what vehicles could provide for people. And he poured everything into that. Jake felt an ache of longing to connect with the grandfather he'd never known. Why didn't anyone talk about it? Because it ended painfully. The cars he created fell into the wrong hands. And with it, some demons came to haunt our family. His voice dropped, almost a whisper. It drove him away, drove us apart. I promised myself I wouldn't carry that burden. Each word sliced through the air, leaving a raw vulnerability exposed. The family block he'd always known shattered, its pieces scattering like leaves before a storm. But it's our history. Shouldn't we embrace it? Jake's father turned to him, his eyes cloudy with unspent emotions. That's why I didn't want you to get involved. I didn't want you to inherit the weight of his choices. The heaviness in the air hung between them, but Jake refused to step back. I'll carry it. I want to know. I want to understand why this legacy was hidden. The silence stretched again, and now it felt different, thicker with possibility. Jake could sense the moment his father began to shake off years of fear. All right, but you have to promise me one thing. If we're going to uncover the truth, we do it together. No holding back. Deal? Jake felt a sense of partnership forming, a bridge over the chasm that had separated them for so long. They would face the darkness as a unit, not as fractured pieces. As they shared plans to sift through forgotten papers and connect with distant relatives, the cool night air began to feel warmer, filled with promise. The mysteries of the past were waiting, and for the first time, Jake felt equipped to face them. But deep inside, a nagging question lingered. What if the truth they uncovered would challenge everything he believed about himself? Would Jake emerge stronger, or would the shadows of history bind him tighter? Together, they stood at the edge of something extraordinary, where every revelation beckoned them further into a hidden world. He took a deep breath, imagining the journey ahead. The adventure wouldn't just be a quest for understanding, it was about reclaiming a legacy. And as they left the park, it was as if Jake could already hear the whispers of the past guiding him. What awaited them at the end of this road? Jake awoke the next morning with a mix of excitement and anxiety curling in his stomach. It felt strange, this urge to uncover the past, to face a history that had been veiled in silence for so long. He glanced at the clock. It was still early. The sun had just begun to crest the horizon, casting a golden hue across his room. He had barely slept, too many thoughts racing through his mind about his grandfather, the secret cars, and the shadowy demons that haunted their family. Jake could almost hear his father's voice again, the weight of shared burdens clinging to each word. "We do it together," he reminded himself, a vow echoing in his heart. After quickly showering and packing some essentials, Jake slumped onto the kitchen chair, waiting for his father to join him for breakfast. The soft sound of footsteps approaching pulled him from his thoughts. His father entered, his hair slightly tousled, evidence of a restless night as well. "Morning," his father said, forcing a smile while pouring himself a cup of coffee. Jake offered a small nod, trying to gauge their newfound partnership amidst the tension still lingering from last night. "Ready?" his father asked, placing the mug down with purpose. "More than ever," Jake replied, feeling the anticipation building within him. "What's the first step?" "We start at the old garage. Your grandfather's belongings were stored there after he trailed off," the weight of the unfinished sentence filling the space between them. They both knew what happened. There was no need to dress it up. "Okay," Jake nodded, setting aside his apprehension. The garage was just a few blocks away, a relic of a past he was now desperate to explore. They finished breakfast in near silence, the air thick with possibility and hints of uncertainty as they walked. The rhythmic sound of their footsteps on the pavement offered a strange comfort. With each step, Jake's heart pounded a little harder. The garage loomed ahead, rusted and forgotten, but to Jake, it sparkled with unspoken stories. They pushed open the creaky door, and Jake was hit with a wave of musty air that smelled of old oil and wood. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight filtering through grimy windows. His father looked around, a ghost of nostalgia crossing his face. "Let us start with these boxes." His father gestured toward a stack of dust-covered containers piled in one corner. Jake moved closer, excitement coursing through him. He pulled the first box down, its weight surprising him. When he lifted the lid, he was met with an assortment of old blueprints and photos. His hands trembled as he sifted through them. There, among the pages, was a hand-drawn sketch of a car, its sleek lines promising speed and elegance. This must be one of his designs. Jake breathed, awe washing over him. His father leaned in closer, his eyes widening. "I remember seeing something like this when I was a kid." There was a flicker of pride mingled with sadness on his face. More sketches followed, each one revealing a world of creativity and ambition. Jake could feel the weight of history around them, as if the garage itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to uncover the truth. Suddenly, amidst the chaos of memories, a small, worn diary fell from the depths of another box and hit the ground with a soft thud. Jake bent to pick it up, the edges crumbling as he opened it, revealing pages filled with his grandfather's shaky handwriting. The entries spoke of dreams, failures, and longings, raw emotions laid bare. "This is it," Jake said, his voice trembling slightly. "This is the connection we needed." As they both leaned closer, an unexpected chill ran through the room, like a whisper of history reminding them that not all wounds were healed, and not all stories ended in joy. Jake glanced at his father, who looked both hopeful and terrified. The legacy was unspooling before them, but what would it truly reveal? What if the revelations in that diary turned out to be darker than they imagined? Jake's fingers traced the faded lines on the diary's cover, feeling the weight of generations resting in its pages. Thoughts raced through his mind, connecting dots between the man he barely knew and the man his father had learned to be. As he thumbed through the entries, the room felt like it was closing in, amplifying the echoes of their past. "Hey," his father spoke softly, breaking the heavy air. "Let us read a few together. We should share this." Jake nodded, heart racing as his father flipped to a random page. The words were crooked and hurried. His grandfather must have poured his heart out in these lines. April 15, 1972. "I've designed more cars than I can count, but the one that haunts me is still on the drafting table. I fear it won't see the light of day," he read aloud, and Jake could hear the tremor in his father's voice. "What do you think he meant?" Jake asked, curiosity igniting within him. His father sighed, brow furrowed. He had this vision, something he believed in, but life got in the way. Sometimes our dreams feel too big to chase. Jake felt a tightening in his chest. So many dreams lay dormant because of fear or circumstance. Did he give up? The question hung heavy, layered with his own doubts. Maybe, or maybe he just had to put them aside for a while. His father's gaze fell back to the diary, and Jake could see the wheels turning in his mind. But it looks like he kept trying. Jake watched as his father turned page after page. The entries were a complex tapestry of hope and despair, punctuated by moments of joy where his grandfather shared successes and new laughter. "He loved doing this," Jake said, his voice a mixture of awe and regret. "Yeah," his father replied, a bit wistfully. "It was a part of him, like it is for us." An unexpected warmth filled Jake's heart, not just for the man who had come before them, but for his father too. In that moment, they were united, bridging a chasm that had existed for years. "Keep going," Jake encouraged, his thumb brushing over the spine of the diary. His father obliged, scanning the hurried script until he landed on another entry. January 3, 1973. "I met a man today who promised to help me refine my designs. He's in the business, says he can get me a deal, but I can't shake the feeling that he has his own agenda." The room quieted, the mood heavy with implications. "What if he did?" Jake whispered, staring at the words, feeling the tension seep from the pages. "Your grandfather was wise. He probably sensed something off." His father looked thoughtful. "There's always something behind the curtain. This could be it," Jake said, excitement flooding back in. "We're uncovering not just the dreams, but the shadows as well. We need to know who this man was." "Absolutely," his father agreed, slamming the diary shut. "This opens up so many questions. We could visit old records or contact the people he worked with," Jake interjected, ideas buzzing like a hive in his head. Could it lead them to discovering what truly happened to his grandfather's dreams? As Jake pieced together a plan, a cold shiver ran through him, accompanied by an unsettling realization. What if this journey exposed secrets that were meant to remain buried? Just as he began to voice his worries, a loud crash echoed from outside, shaking the walls of the garage. They exchanged startled looks, instinctively gripping the diary tighter. "Did you hear that?" Jake's heart raced anew. His father nodded, eyes darting towards the door. "Let us check it out." The air was tense as they moved toward the exit, uncertainty clinging to their footsteps. What could be waiting for them outside? What if those shadows were more than just memories? Jake's heart thumped loudly in his chest, wondering if the real adventure was just beginning. Jake pushed the door open slowly, his heart thumping like a drum in his chest. The cold night air rushed in, carrying with it a distant sound of shattering glass and the low murmur of voices, far too lively for the normally quiet neighborhood. "Stay close," his father whispered, stepping outside first. Jake followed, peering around as they stepped into the dim light of the abandoned street. The moon illuminated a scene he wasn't prepared for. There, in the street, was a crumpled heap of metal and glass. A car had smashed into a nearby fence. Two figures stood beside it, their silhouettes tense, illuminated occasionally by the flickering of a flashlight. Jake's pulse quickened. The adrenaline sent shockwaves through him. What were they doing out here? "Hey, are you okay?" Jake's father called out, his worry evident. The two figures turned sharply. One of them, A woman dressed in a dark hoodie knelt next to the wreckage. The other, a man with wild hair, stood protectively over her, casting frantic looks toward the fence. "We're fine," the man shouted back, but his voice lacked conviction. "Just a little accident." Jake's father exchanged glances with him, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. This was a chance, an opportunity to step outside their own troubled shadows. They could help. "Let us go," his father urged, moving closer. Jake's legs felt heavy, but he pushed himself forward, drawn by a mix of curiosity and the need to do something. "What happened?" Jake asked as they approached, taking in the damage. The woman looked up, her eyes wide and fearful. "We were just trying to get it started. The brakes went out." "Shut up," the man snapped, his eyes darting nervously. "Just help us out, all right?" His tone shifted the atmosphere. Jake's initial resolve wavered, the air now thick with tension. "Maybe we should call for help," his father suggested, raising his phone. "No, no cops. Just help us lift it off the fence, and we'll be out of your hair," the man insisted, his voice shaky. Jake felt a pit forming in his stomach. Something was off. The worry in the man's face wasn't just for the wreck. It was a fear tied to something deeper. "Is there more to this?" he pressed, caught between instinct and the unease creeping in. Before they could respond, another loud noise echoed through the night. A voice, gruff and angry, shouted in the distance. Jake's heart raced. The sudden urgency hit him, and he could see the panic rising in the other two. "Now," the woman implored, glancing back toward the road. "Help us or we might get caught." "Caught? Caught at what?" Jake stole a glance at his father, looking for guidance. His eyes mirrored the conflict he felt deep down. This wasn't just a car wreck. This felt like a moment that could trap them in a world they didn't understand. Yet, as his father began to move forward, ready to offer assistance, Jake felt an inexplicable pull toward that looming question. What secret were they protecting? "Dad, wait," Jake called, his voice firm as the reality of the situation crashed around him. His father paused, turning back. "Maybe we shouldn't." As noises from the approaching figures grew louder, Jake felt the weight of indecision. With every second, this moment dripped with possibility, a chance to either dive into an adventure or step back into safety. There was no easy choice ahead. What if their initial search for truth led them into a darkness they couldn't escape? The wind howled as it whipped around them, heightening Jake's senses. The urgency in the woman's eyes made it impossible to look away. Her fear was palpable, illuminating the frantic energy that crackled in the air like a charged storm. "Jake, let's help them," his father urged quietly. But Jake felt the struggle within him. He wanted to help, yet he sensed the danger lurking just beneath the surface. "What are you hiding?" Jake asked, his voice shaking while he glanced at the man. The man's eyes flashed with anger, but there was something more lurking in his gaze, a hint of desperation. "Just keep it down, all right?" the man growled, clenching his fists. "We don't need anyone else here. Just lift the car." Jake's stomach churned. The shadows that draped over the street seemed to swallow the warmth of the night. With each passing moment, the shadows felt more and more suffocating. He looked at his father, who was standing still, conflicted. The decision hung heavily in the air between them. Something in Jake's heart urged him to refuse this man's demand. What if they're involved in something illegal? He thought, the questions eating away at his resolve. Maybe it wasn't just about a car wreck after all. Maybe it was about something much larger, something dangerous. But the shouting figure in the distance grew closer. The gravel crunching underfoot signaled movement, and Jake could see shadows approaching. They were almost upon them. "Help us, please. If you don't help us, we'll never get out of here," the woman pleaded, her voice cracking. "Trust me, we didn't mean to get into this mess." Her vulnerability pulled at something deep within Jake, a hope that they were truly innocent, caught in a situation they never intended. In her eyes, he saw a reflection of fear. He recognized all too well the kind he felt when his family ran from their problems, hiding in the dark corners of their own lives. 5 minutes, his father finally snapped, the decision made. They lift the car off the fence and be on their way. Jake's heart sank as he stepped forward. Just 5 minutes. Then we're calling for help. Jake nodded hesitantly, his instincts screaming that this was a dangerous and unwise choice. The woman hurried to his father's side, and together they moved toward the damaged vehicle. The three of them heaved against the weight of the wreck. Jake felt the cold metal digging into his palms as they shared a collective grunt of effort. As they struggled, he caught a glance at the woman's face, now close enough to see the fear mixed with determination. There was a flicker of something more, a story behind her eyes that he wanted to understand, to unravel. Just a bit more. Simon, the man urged, his breath heavy with anxiety. As they pushed with all their might, the car finally shifted enough for the woman to scramble out from under it. She stumbled back, panting and disheveled. "We made it," she cried, but as she turned to thank them, the shout in the distance reached a fever pitch. Footsteps thudded on the pavement, racing toward them with purpose. Jake recognized that tone. It was a voice that commanded fear, a voice that implied authority. "We need to go now." His father's grip tightened on Jake's arm as they quickly reversed direction, but the frantic movements only fueled the overwhelming sense of urgency. With shadows closing in, Jake realized this wasn't just a reckless adventure anymore. This was a turning point, one that could change everything. His heart raced as he turned to face the woman again, desperation clawing at him. What's really going on? Who are they? But before she could respond, the figures emerged from the darkness. A darkly lit montage that was about to reshape Jake's perception forever. The collision of fear, hope, and the unknown exploded within him. "Hold on," he shouted, feeling the world tilt beneath his feet. What came next would leave them all on a precipice of revelations. Truths that could alter their lives. A choice that demanded a price. Would they step forward together, or would this moment shatter everything? The world seemed to pause as shadows flared under the dim streetlights, echoing questions that hung in the air. Jake's pulse raced, heart pounding like a drum of war in his chest as the figures approached. Suddenly, he felt the tension mount, an overwhelming urgency to understand, to find his place in this chaotic moment. His father gripped his arm tighter, urgency mingling with fear as the looming figures drew near. The man and woman, adrenaline still coursing through them, exchanged knowing glances. "We didn't mean for this to happen," the woman said, her voice a whisper now, almost fragile against the rising tension. "We were just trying to protect something important. What could be so crucial that it leads to this?" Jake demanded, emotion surging through him like a wildfire. The man's eyes darted around, a panic that mirrored Jake's dining room's heavy silence only hours before. "They've been looking for us for a long time," he replied, his voice shaky. "You don't understand." The approaching footsteps thudded louder now, leaving a trail of urgency that clawed at Jake's insides. They were near, too near. He met his father's eyes, both frantic and resolute. "We can't get caught up in this. We have to leave," his father said. Yet something within Jake urged him to stay. What was brewing here was a vital piece of his family's puzzle, something that felt deeply interconnected to the remnants of his grandfather's past. The figures came into focus, and Jake could finally see their faces, direct and fierce, set with an intensity that chilled him. He took a breath, stepping slightly in front of his father, clenching the diary tightly. "What is it you're running from? What's going on?" His voice rang with a conviction that surprised him. With that question hanging, the woman took a step forward. Her frame trembled, but in her eyes burned an essence of strength. "Our families, they've been connected in ways you can't imagine. Your grandfather," she trailed off, glancing back at the wrecked car. "He created something revolutionary, and it drew danger. There are people who will stop at nothing to control what he built." Jake felt time warp again, each second stretching further as she spoke. The urgency around them faded, replaced with a profound silence. "You know about the designs he had, don't you?" she continued, her voice calming. "The legacy you're uncovering, it's more than just cars. It's about freedom and hope, and it's dangerous." Dangerous? The echo of that word settled into his mind, mingling with the discovery he made just moments ago in the dusty garage. Jake felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of connection to the history that was shimmering in his hands. His grandfather's dreams lived on, resonating through people he had yet to meet. Are we really caught in something we can't undo? Jake asked, glancing up at his father for affirmation. It was a moment that felt pivotal, trapped between the past and what lay just ahead. His father's expression twisted, caught between anger and something new, something softening, perhaps, the thickening walls of fear that had shadowed their relationship for years. We'll figure it out together, he said finally, pulling Jake closer. What's important is that we don't let this past define us. A flicker of understanding passed between them, bridging the gap built by fear. Jake turned back to the pair. So what now? What do we need to do? The woman glanced toward the darkened figures advancing. We have to stand together. If we are tasked to carry this legacy forward, we need to protect it. The determination in her eyes sparked something deep within him. This was more than just remnants of cars. This was about family, about protecting something precious. His breath quickened, inspired by the thought of a world where his grandfather's dreams could come to life. We can't let them take it. We'll fight for it. Jake felt the fire ignite. I'm ready. Let us uncover everything. His father nodded, resolve swelling in his chest. But we have to move quickly. Time is not on our side. They surged into action, the pair moving quickly into the looming shadows. Jake felt the cool night air burn in his lungs as he turned toward the wreck, sensing the fragile lives intertwined with this family history. The woman beckoned for them to come closer. Together, we'll figure this out, she said, her eyes lighting up with newfound hope. And if we can stay one step ahead, maybe we can protect what's left. With that statement, something within Jake shifted. He was no longer just chasing a dream. He was part of a tapestry woven from love, lost time, and ancestral ties. Emotions surged as he joined the group, instinctively feeling that this moment was both an end and a beginning. The group shared determined looks, a united front against the unknown. As they stood on the precipice of what could be discovered, a fresh sense of purpose washed over Jake, filling the void where doubt had lingered. Let us do this, he said with fervor, the glint of adventure brightening his eyes as they began to weave their way through the shadows, connected by a legacy and carrying the weight of hopes and dreams that refused to die, awaiting the dawn of truths yet unraveled. Jake had found his path, his heart racing as the echoes of history called to him. The darkness didn't scare him now. It only promised new beginnings. And in that unity, Jake found his strength. As they ventured further into the night, Jake whispered a silent vow. They weren't just uncovering a legacy, they were reclaiming hope itself. So hold on to hope, just like Jake did. This is a journey we all can take together. Now, do us a solid, subscribe immediately to the channel, so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now because it feeds the algorithm, and your support matters more than ever. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this wild ride. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us keep this momentum going together.